On the Track is a monthly web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues, and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to show you this noisome object. These are the glasses that I've been wearing for the last 2.5 years, and as you can see, they've been held together with gaffer tape, bits of welding rods, and if you look there on the lenses, you can even see where different bits of super glue has sort of slightly melted the lenses themselves. They really are an unpleasant thing. And this is one of the reasons why in the last 1.5 years or so I have not been wearing my glasses. Partly because they're uncomfortable and they look stupid, and partly because since the COVID restrictions, and don't get me wrong, I don't mind wearing a mask, but particularly with these glasses, if I wore a mask, it would steam them up appallingly, and they'd be uncomfortable, they'd hurt my nose, and I wouldn't be able to see through them. So, on the whole, I never wore them anywhere. And now I'm going to do something remarkable. I threw them away. Why? Because I have new glasses, and to celebrate the fact that I have new glasses, Barry Tadcaster and a special guest are going to sing to us.
It could see for miles and miles. It can see for miles and miles and miles. It can see for miles and miles and miles and miles and miles.
Now that's what I call artistically enlivening.
I really like the old credits.
And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Last week, I'm sure you will remember, I was bemoaning the fact that our camera had packed up and I no longer had a 2-camera system. But then, guess what? Downstairs came Graham and he fixed it because I had just done something stupid. And with me doing something stupid and Richard, who has the technological ability of a marmoset, we between us managed to knacker the whole thing. But guess what? Now we have a 2-camera system again! Huzzah! And now we return to the conversation I had the other week with one of my favourite ladies of cryptozoology, the ever-lovely and fascinating Katy Elizabeth. How long have you been living on the lake?
I have been here for 4 years now. So I moved up here 4 years ago, and I have horses and I have kitty cats and stuff. And it was a big move because I had to move the horses up here too. And of course my parents live back home, and my dad is an amputee, so he can't really get around very well. And it's difficult when you leave your family behind. You know, I do see them very often, which I'm fortunate. I don't live that far away, but it was difficult to come and live my dream and leave my family behind in a way. So it can be tough, you know, but you have to let the little bird out of the nest, so to speak, sometimes.
With your time that you've spent up there since, have you seen any? Have you had any other sightings?
Well, oh gosh, good question. Back in 2014, I wasn't living here at that point yet, but I was coming up every 2 to 3 weeks. So it was such a pain to drive up that often because you add up the hours, 5 hours up, 5 hours back. But in 2014, I captured a video in Button Bay, and what's really strange about that sighting and that video that I captured, it was the same exact spot where I had my first sighting, and it was doing the same thing. I believe these animals are extremely habitual. They have a pattern, certain times, certain locations. And I believe if you go to the same spots it's not going to be every day, but if you keep going to that same spot every single day at the same time, eventually you're going to get a glimpse again. It's just like any other animal in the animal kingdom, like deer. They'll go back to an area to feed certain time of like towards dusk in the evening. And if you keep going back to that spot, you're surely going to see something again. So yeah, 2014 is when I got the video in Button Bay. And the same year, we actually had gotten echolocation over in an area called Scotch Bonnet. Dennis Hall, that I had worked with back at that time, he captured a video back in 1985 in the same spot. So I thought maybe it would be a great idea to go out there around 7 o'clock p.m., which is a really great feeding time. I've had a lot of luck with capturing the echolocation between 6 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. And that's when the fish are most abundant, when they're moving and they're feeding on the bugs. And then when they're feeding on the bugs, it's a chain reaction. The champ animals are feeding on the fish. So we had gotten to that spot, and on the hydrophone, I have a small hydrophone system. In cetacean research, they have a lot of big equipment and stuff, and I try to keep it compact because I don't want to have to lug all that stuff around. So I have a I have a really small unit, and it has the microphone on the end. I have the headphones, and it goes directly towards a digital recorder. So we were sitting there listening, and I know the normal sounds of fish in the lake, boat motors, sonar will make a constant tick, tick, like a clock. It's a constant machine. You can tell it's machine made sound. There's no variables on the up or the down. And we were sitting there and we started hearing click, 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 click. And I said, you have got to be kidding me. I had like tears in my eyes because I've studied whales and dolphins. I go out and do marine biology work down in Florida as well to aid in my cryptozoological studies on Champ. And I had heard a lot of echolocation that was very similar to that in beluga whales, believe it or not. So that was fascinating. And I have gotten probably, I would say, 4 different echolocation recordings. And I also got some strange vocalizations that don't fit into any known fish in Lake Champlain or boat motors or anything in the lake. Very, very strange sounds. There was one I was filming for NBC, and we were out in the boat just sitting there. I had gotten the echolocation, but I didn't even notice that I had gotten it while we were filming because I had so much going on around me. There was like camera here and a camera here and all these people making all this noise. So I didn't hear it on the hydrophone at the time when it happened. And analyzing the recordings later, I did pick that up, and I was so excited. I was calling them up. I'm like, we got something. And it was that same clicking pattern. It goes click, 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 an up and then a down, and a higher frequency. And then the other recording that I had got, which is really strange, I had never heard it before. It was like a deep, just like a whale. And on the episode, they caught it right in real. We heard that because it was so loud, and we looked at each other, and I said, that sounds like a whale. So it was really strange. I know that they echolocate, but just like any other animal species, they have a complex language. There could be infrasound that us as humans cannot hear, and the hydrophone may not even pick up those sounds with those certain frequencies.
Golly. And with the clicking sound, all the times that you've picked that up, it's always been the same click, 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 click. You do it better than me, but up and down, up and down.
Yes. Yes, it's been the same pattern. It's very strange because I know with whale and dolphin research that I've done with the cetaceans and such, there is different types of like that echolocation, the rhythm of it. Although I did the first recording that I had gotten, that one is more like a brrr. And I remember going down to a place down in the state of Connecticut called the Mystic Aquarium. And I did a little bit of a undercover beluga whale study there because they don't want you putting anything in the aquarium tanks. And I had my hydrophone in my purse. And I was like, how am I going to get away with this? Because they're very stuck up when it comes to like independent researchers coming in. They have to get all kinds of clearance from their peers for someone to come in and do that sort of work. So I said, you know what? I have an idea. I'm just going to take the end of the hydrophone and put it against the glass. And I'll tell you, it worked like a charm. So I'm sitting there trying to be all incognito in a corner next to this outside tank that they had the belugas in. And I had the microphone against the thing. And I'm just like, pretending I'm not doing anything. and it's weird because where the tanks are, it's like a cave. It's all concrete, and it looks like you're in this cave. And I'm just kind of sitting in the corner, and they must have thought, what the hell is this woman doing? Just sitting. I'm just enjoying watching the whales blow bubbles, So I did record something is almost the same as that first recording that we had gotten. That one wasn't a variable type of click, 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 click. It goes up and down, but it's more of a lower frequency. But it's like a part of it's like that. It's the weirdest thing. And when I heard one of those belugas doing that, I was just like, oh my God, it was just so similar. So I just believe that they have a complex language, just like any other animal, and perhaps sounds that we can't even hear with the hydrophone. I mean, giraffes are like that. They have infrasound. Scientists are believing that those sounds can travel for miles. And in water, salt water in particular, sound will travel further because of the salinity of the water. So here in the lake, it's fresh water. So we only really have, I would say, 1 to 2 miles of a radius where we can hear something clearly on the hydrophone. But if you are in a spot that's very narrow, where I was like when I did the recording, when I work with NBC, that's called the Narrows. And it's like this really deep channel. And we were out there yesterday in the research vessel, and I think the deepest that we had gotten to on the sonar was around 345 feet in that channel. So it's quite deep. And it was interesting because where we were filming for NBC at the time, that deep channel, I got the echolocation, but it wasn't very loud. So I think wherever this animal was, it was further down that channel, and that was acting as a funnel for the sound to compress and come to the, where I was with the hydrophone. So I would say that's probably a 7 mile range right there where the Narrows is on the lake. So it's always good to go in a narrower part of an area where there's a channel, because that sound will travel a lot further.
Katy is one of those people with whom it's impossible to have a short conversation. So I'm sure you'll be glad to know that there is more of Katy to come in the next episode, and probably in the episode after that. I look forward to it very much indeed. Richard, God bless him, has been out and about quite a lot recently, and last weekend he was in Staffordshire, in the little village of Abbot's Bromley, where a peculiar ritual takes place once a year.
This is Steve Jones, who is a practicing witch and a folklorist, and he's going to tell us a little bit about the background to the horn dance. So Steve, where does it owe its genesis, the horn dance?
Well, nobody's quite sure, because the The earliest written evidence for the horn dance is actually in a lease that dates back to the 13th century, which grants various rights to the villagers in the nearby forest of Needwood, and it lets them, if I remember rightly, gather branches and forage and stuff like that, on condition that they do the horn dance. Now, I'll keep it going as well, which means obviously that it had to be going before that for them to insist that they carry on doing it. The actual horns themselves, which are kept in the church behind me, which is the Church of St. Nicholas, the horns are normally kept when it's not horn dance day, in the former lady chapel of the church. Which is interesting because they are a set of reindeer horns, and for many years the tale was that these reindeer horns have been brought back from one of the European tours by one of the sons of the Abbot family, who are the local lords of the manor of Abbot's Bromley. However, in the last century, one of the horns was slightly damaged, and it was sent for repair, and the opportunity was taken to carbon date the damaged bit, and it was carbon dated to give or take 1050 or the 11th century. And the interesting thing is that in the 11th century we still had a native British reindeer, so the chances are that possibly these are native British reindeer horns and not, as was formerly thought, European reindeer which have been brought back as a tourist trophy. So, as I say, nobody quite knows how old, but it's certainly the oldest custom known in Britain.
Do we know the purpose of it? Is it fertility or anything like that?
There's various theories about it. One of them is it was just a way of begging for money for the agricultural labourers, but I think there's a bit more to it than that, because the dance itself, in the various figures of the dance, represents the clashing of the stags, which is something that stags do when they are rutting. Now, the day that the horn dance is always on is always, as it says on my shirt here, the Monday after the first Sunday after the 4th of September, which is the village feast day. It's actually the feast day of St. Bartholomew. And that also happens to roughly coincide with the season when deer are in rut and stags are naturally fighting one another. So the chances of it being, I mean, pagans always ramble on about everything needing fertility, but this one could be, because contrary to what a lot of folklore books still insist on saying, which is that the dance was originally done at 12th night, which would be in the winter time, and it was done as a way of raising money. The second mention of the dance itself, and the one that most people sort of know a lot of, is in a book by Robert Plott's History of Staffordshire, which is in the 17th century, in which, to paraphrase, he says that he was told that it was originally done at 12th night, which means that he didn't actually see it, and he was told that, so which is a bit like a man in a pub said to me. So I don't think it was ever done at 12th night. I think it's always been done around this time of year, and I think it does commemorate in the figures the rutting of the stag. The other interesting thing is that apart from dancing around various points in the village and outside the church here, it's danced at various farms around Abbots Bromley, and there are certain farms that they go and dance at, which again could be interpreted as the fertility for the crops.
Do you think there's any connection with Cernunnos, the horn god?
I don't think there is, no. One year when I was here, there was a German gentleman who stood in the crowd watching, and he was drawing attention to various dances in Germany, which involved horns. But having looked at, I think he was referring to things like the Krampus dances, which is something entirely different. There are no other customs like it anywhere in Great Britain. Nowhere else did anything like the Abbots Bromley horn dance. And it's one of the few that hasn't really been mucked about with by the Victorian. The only thing that the Victorians mucked about with is the original dancers' costumes, which originally apparently consisted of rag tatters, which is similar to what Morris Size used to use, and one side in Gloucestershire still uses them. But the vicar's daughter, back at the turn of the 20th century, apparently decided they were looking a bit grubby, so she had these outfits made up, partly from curtains that she had on hand, which is why the trousers have got these fleur-de-lis and things like that from the Queen. And they've copied that design ever since, so when one lot starts to wear thin, they raise money, and then they have exact reproductions done of this original set. So I forget whether they were ever on the third or fourth set now, but that's the only change there. Oh, apart from the fact that there is an original Abbot's Bromley horn dance tune, which is a very haunting tune, and it's quite a slow one, and they no longer use that tune for the dance here in Abbot's Bromley, which is a shame, because they speeded up the steps when they're dancing to get round a bit faster. So consequently they dance to traditional tunes, like the Rising of the Moon, and tunes like that.
So was Robin Hood and Maid Marian and the Fool, were they added later?
No, the interesting thing is they've always been in as figures apart from the first one, which is interesting because Robin Hood, getting to Robin Hood legends, again, Robin Hood I think does appear about 13th century. I forget when Robin Hood appears as a character in the poem of Piers Plowman, and I can't from the top of my head remember when that's the first mention in writing of him, and I have it in my head that was around 1200, maybe 13. So again, the fact that he appears may be around that. The Maid Marian figure may be a later one, because that's the man-woman figure who's quite often called the Betsy in Morris Sides. And Maid Marian in the Robin Hood legends was imported from France in, I think, the 1400s, so that might be a later addition to the dance. They could have been added to it. I'm not quite sure.
It's a remarkable survival, isn't it, when most other things have died out or are not that ancient?
It's an amazing survival, and it's an amazing survival that hasn't been stamped out or messed around with too much. And I mean, the amazing thing is that the horns, when they're not used, are kept in the church. They're not kept, they're always hung up in the church. You can go and see them. The other thing is that the set of horns that are used on Horn Dance Day only are the original horns, and they have a spare set if they ever dance outside the village. They only keep these within the village. So what will happen when these really get worn out and tattered will be interesting to see.
Okay, thanks Steve. Cheers.
And here we have the traditional Abbot's Bromley invocation to the king as the dancers prance along to the tune of Elvis Presley's Wooden Heart. It's one of the things that I love most about England, that an ancient ritual dance like this can be carried out each year when nobody really knows why, nobody really knows what it's for, and the people from the pagan tradition, the Christian tradition, and just the village tradition all join together to do something which is quintessentially English and quintessentially strange. And where else in the world could you have an intrepid young cryptozoologist like Richard nearly get gored in the eye by a 1,000-year-old set of reindeer horns? Because that's what happened here, or very nearly happened here, and they were playing a sprightly version of Cock of the North while Richard moved in to try to get some really interesting camera angles and nearly had his eye put out. You couldn't make this stuff up. And even the ice cream van has little plastic antlers added to it. This is the sort of small town surreality which I think makes England, still despite everything, a fantastic place to live. And it is this sort of stuff that makes me still proud to be English. So Richard, why was it that the Soviet Union, even under Stalin, who really wasn't really best known for his interest in esoteric subjects, why was it that the Soviet Union, of all places, had a snowman commission where the subject of relict hominins was never taken seriously at governmental level anywhere else in the world?
Well, the late Marie-Jean Kaufmann spoke about this and wrote about this very question, and she said it was all to do with the promotion of socialism. Portionev himself and members of the government believed that if they could prove that the snowman exists, they could prove that socialism was the correct mode of living. And this might sound like a strange concept, but their thought was that if they proved this creature existed, they knew that it didn't build fire, it had primitive tool use, it could swing a club, it could hurl rocks, but it didn't make things like bows and arrows and spears and things like that. And they thought that tool making and civilization came with collectivism. So they thought that civilization and intelligence wasn't marked by bipedalism, it was marked by a collective effort, the production of tools and so forth, complex tools that is, and societies could only be formed with a collective viewpoint. So that would prove that intelligence goes hand in hand with socialism.
So, it's true to say then, Richard, that if people buy this book, it will be the first step towards destroying the international capitalist conspiracy.
Yes, it certainly will be.
This is a remarkable piece of work, and it is a remarkable concatenation of effort by 3 or 4 different people to get it ready. It would have been finished several years ago, but I'm afraid my efforts in the last few years have been looking after Karina as she died. But I'm now moving on with my life. The CFZ is moving on with its life, and this book is now available for sale at a specially discounted rate through the CFZ website. So go and have a look on www.cfz.org.uk. In fact, Louise keeps on telling me that I don't have to use the word www anymore. But go check out the CFZ website, and there is a special offer there. So please go and have a look and buy this book. It is a fascinating document of a time which is fast becoming forgotten. Well done to all involved.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page and check out our Patreon.
And as the ghost of Joe Strummer, who is a regular visit to the studio, wants me to remind you, always remember to ring the notification bell. Otherwise, you won't be told when we've got a new show available. And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of another episode. But fear not. We'll be back again very soon. But before we go, I just want to say a big thank you, just particularly to Richard Freeman for all his hard work in this episode, and to our old friend Steve Jones for explaining the Abbot's Bromley horn dance, and to Katy Elizabeth, and, as always, to Louis and Carl. and Graham, who do their thing both behind and in front of the camera. And I'd like to say a big thank you to Maxine, Charlotte and Sarah for all that they do as well. So much love to everybody. And when will we be back? Well, it is only another 7 days, because Saturday afternoon we're always back. Saturday afternoon you get a chance to have me lecture you on the subject of hard science, weird shit and surreality, and hopefully ever more shall be so. So next Saturday afternoon I'm going to be here. If you're going to be there, then I very much hope that I'll be seeing you.